What if the first time a man truly sees you is when you have nothing to hide behind? Not clothes, not pride, not even fear. That was the moment that changed everything for Cole Harrington and Lily Hart, long before either of them understood how powerful it would become. The year was 1878, and the high plains between the New Mexico Territory and Texas were burning under a sun that acted less like a giver of life and more like a hammer. The land was dry, split open in long cracks that looked like old scars. Dust drifted across the open country in shimmering waves, heat rising like ghosts from the earth. This land belonged to Cole Harrington, and like the land, he was a man carved by hardship. At 32, Cole ruled a 40,000-acre empire of thirsty ground and longhorn cattle that grew leaner by the day. Folks in town whispered and called him Iron Cole. They said he didn't smile, didn't joke, didn't soften for anyone. They weren't wrong. His days were built on silence, grit, and the never-ending worry of water. From sunup to sundown, he rode the fence lines and watched the sky like a man begging a stingy god for relief. The only thing keeping his ranch alive was Willow Draw, a stubborn green thread of water fed by a spring deep in his land. That spring was the heart of everything: his cattle, his ranch, and the trouble boiling in the nearby town of Dusty Bend. Trouble had a name: Silas Boone. Owner of the Gilded Garter Saloon, a man who traded in whispers and lies, Boone had bought a worthless plot of land upstream and now claimed he owned the water that fed Willow Draw. Folks could smell a fight coming long before a single shot was fired. But Cole didn't bend. His fences were his answer. His silence was his shield. And inside his lonely limestone ranch house, the quiet after dark felt like another enemy, one he could never quite defeat. 20 miles away, Dusty Bend lived up to its name. Heat, dry wind, and grit curling into every corner. That was Lily Hart's world, though her world was much smaller than Cole's wide plains. Just 4 walls behind Bellamy's general store. At 21, Lily lived a life pinned under someone else's thumb. Orphaned at 16, she survived by working 6 days a week under Mrs. Bellamy's sharp eyes and Mr. Bellamy's unwanted closeness. She was neat, careful, and proud. A quiet girl with straight shoulders who held on to her dignity like it was the last thing she owned. And in Dusty Bend, it was. One blistering morning, Lily reached her breaking point. Mr. Bellamy cornered her in the storeroom again. He didn't touch her, not exactly, but his breath, his look, his presence were enough to smother the air around her. Lily slipped out the back door the moment she could, clutching a small bundle of soap, a towel, and the clean shift she saved for Sundays. She needed to breathe. She needed to wash him off her skin. Lily walked out of town and toward the place she kept secret even from herself, a hidden pool along Willow Draw. A bend in the creek sheltered by thick cottonwoods and old, twisted willows. It was on Harrington land, but far from the ranch house. No one ever came this way. By the time she reached the water, the sun had baked the world into a shimmering haze. Sweat gathered at her neck. Dust clung to her skin. Her lungs felt tight with everything she carried and everything she was running from. The pool was waiting for her like a miracle. Cool, clear, quiet. She listened. Only insects and the faint rustle of leaves. She undressed quickly, folding her worn dress on a warm rock. Her skin felt strange in the open air, pale against the harsh wildland. When she slipped into the water, the cold was a shock that made her gasp. She scrubbed her arms, her hair, her shoulders. She let the water take what she carried from town, the dust, the fear, the shame. For the first time in months, she felt like herself again. She didn't know that another pair of eyes was watching. Cole Harrington had not planned to ride this part of the creek. But something pulled him there. A restless weight in his chest, a need to see his water, to make sure it was still flowing strong. Zeus, his steady buckskin, carried him quietly alongside the creek bed. Then he heard it. A splash, too heavy for an animal. He stopped behind a stand of trees, instinct sharpening every sense he had. His hand went to the peacemaker on his hip. He stepped off the horse, moved silently, looked through the leaves, and everything inside him stopped. A woman stood waist-deep in the pool, her back to him, her skin pale in the shadowed water, her hair dark and wet across her shoulders. She lifted her arms to squeeze water from her hair, and the simple movement hit him like a blow to the chest. He knew her. The girl from the general store, the one with quiet eyes and a pride that made her seem taller than she was. He should have turned away. He didn't. Something about her, alone in the water, soft in a world full of hard edges, held him rooted in place. It was not lust that pinned him there. It was something deeper, something he didn't have a name for. Then a twig snapped under his boot. Lily spun around. Her breath caught in her throat. Her arms crossed over her chest. Her cheeks flushed a fierce red. Fear flickered in her eyes. Cole stepped out, hands raised slightly. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "my apologies. I was checking the water line." Her voice shook, but it was sharp. "You have no right." "I know." He turned his back fully, the weight of shame pressing on him harder than any drought. Behind him, he heard her scramble out of the water, the rustle of clothes, the sound of her breath catching as she dressed with shaking hands. "I'm dressed," she said at last. He turned slowly. She stood small but proud, her chin lifted, her wet hair dripping down her dress, her bundle clutched to her chest like a shield. He walked to his horse, took his canteen, and held it out to her. "The walk to town is long," he said. "Take some water." She hesitated, then took it. Their fingers brushed. A jolt of something warm and frightening passed between them. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington." "Cole." She didn't repeat his name. She stepped toward the willows, toward the heat and the dust, and the lonely road back to town. "Miss Hart," he called. She stopped, but didn't turn. "Be careful. The land is hard on people who walk alone." She left without another word. Cole stood there long after she vanished. The wind blew the scent of willows and clean water around him. Something inside him, something he thought had died long ago, shifted. He didn't know it yet, but the drought in his soul had just felt its first drop of rain. How far can a single moment follow a man? For Cole Harrington, the memory of Lily Hart standing in Willow Draw followed him like a shadow that refused to leave. It stayed in his thoughts when the sun rose, when he counted cattle, when he sat alone at the long dinner table in his silent limestone home. He had lived years without wanting anything beyond keeping his land alive. Now a new want lived inside him, quiet, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. For 3 days he fought it. He told himself it was guilt, nothing more. He had intruded on her privacy. He had seen her at her most vulnerable. Any decent man would be troubled. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was much harder to admit. He saw a strength in her, a fire, a pride that called to something lonely inside him. Her patched dress meant more to him than the finest silk in any fancy catalog. Her straight back, her lifted chin, they haunted him. By the 4th morning, he stopped fighting and made a decision. A cold, practical one, he told himself. The ranch needed a bookkeeper. His ledgers were a disaster. The stores were in chaos. He needed someone smart, organized, and steady. And the only person he trusted for it was Lily Hart. So he saddled Zeus and rode into Dusty Bend. The moment he pushed open the general store door, the bell jingling sharply, the room went silent. Mr. Bellamy's smile stretched too wide. Mrs. Bellamy stiffened like she'd swallowed a broom handle. But Cole's eyes went straight to Lily. She stood by the flour barrels, dust on her cheek, her hands folded neatly in front of her. She looked up at him with a guarded expression, one he had no right to expect anything else from. "I came to speak with Miss Hart," Cole said. Mrs. Bellamy pursed her lips. "About what business, Mr. Harrington?" Cole didn't even look at her. He stepped toward Lily, stopping a respectful distance away. "Miss Hart, I have a position open at the ranch. I need someone to manage my household supplies, payroll, and ledgers. The job pays 3 times what you make here. It includes room and board. You would live on the ranch." The air went still. Lily's breath caught. Fear, shock, hope, and caution flickered across her face in one painful heartbeat. "Why?" she whispered. It was the question he had feared. He gave the simplest truth he could. Because my books are a mess. And because you're good with numbers. You're organized. You work hard. He didn't add, and because I owe you something I don't know how to repay. Lily glanced at Mr. Bellamy, and the greed on his face twisted something inside her. Mrs. Bellamy looked furious. Both wanted to keep her exactly where she was, useful, trapped, small. Lily lifted her chin. My duties would be strictly clerical? The meaning hit Cole like a hammer. She was drawing a line, a boundary. He met her eyes with steady respect. Strictly, you would answer to me for the books, and to my forewoman, Maeve Orr, for the house. You would have your own rooms. It is a job, nothing more. She took a slow breath, then another. I accept, she said. Before the Bellamys could protest, Cole nodded. Gather your things. Within minutes, she reappeared with a small, battered valise, everything she owned in the world. Cole helped her onto Zeus's saddle and mounted behind her, careful not to crowd her. As they left Dusty Bend, whispers exploded behind them like gunfire. They rode in silence, but the air between them felt different, tight, charged, fragile. When the ranch came into view, Lily couldn't hide her shock. It wasn't a house. It was a fortress. Pale limestone walls rose strong against the open plains, built to withstand droughts, storms, and men with bad intentions. The front door opened as they arrived, and out stepped the woman who would shape Lily's life more than she knew. Maeve Orr, tall, sharp, red-haired, steady as a mountain. Maeve looked at Lily with a swift, cutting assessment. Maeve, Cole said, this is Miss Lily Hart. She will be managing the stores and ledgers. Maeve nodded once. Welcome to Harrington Ranch. Your day starts at dawn. Your work is your business. The men's business is mine. You keep your distance, they'll keep theirs. We understand each other? Quote. We do, Lily said quietly. And just like that, she was part of a new world. Her first week was a storm of work. Barrels, shelves, sacks, and crates. Lily turned chaos into order. Ledgers that had looked like scribbled battlefields became neat rows and columns. She found overcharges, shortages, and waste. She saved the ranch more money in 1 week than Cole had saved in months. Maeve watched her like a hawk, and slowly, respect replaced suspicion. The only part of the day Lily dreaded was dinner. Every evening at 7 o'clock, she and Cole sat at opposite ends of a long, polished table built for 20. A quiet housekeeper served them while silence stretched between them like a desert. Cole would ask about inventory. She would answer, he would nod. She would look down. But the silence wasn't cold. It was full of tension, of awareness, of something unspoken growing in the space between them. Then, one afternoon, the sky changed. A storm rolled in hard and fast. Wind tore at the shutters. Lightning cracked the sky wide open. Lily was in the office finishing the month's feed accounts when a loud crash echoed across the hall. The window in Cole's study had blown in. Wind and rain poured through the shattered frame. Lily rushed in to find Cole pushing a heavy armchair against the opening. "Help me move the bookshelf," he shouted. Together they shoved the oak bookshelf across the floor until the solid wood blocked the wind. The moment it sealed the opening, the storm's roar quieted to a muffled howl. They stood there, both soaked, breathing hard. "You're shaking," he said. "I'm fine." He crossed the room, opened a chest, and pulled out a thick wool blanket. He draped it around her shoulders with a tenderness that stunned her. "Sit," he said softly. She did. He sat across from her. In the flickering lamplight, the house around them groaned under the storm's fury. But inside the study, it was warm, quiet, intimate. For the first time, their silence felt shared instead of lonely. Lily looked at the window, then at Cole. "I've never seen a storm like this." "They happen," he said. "The land gets thirsty. When rain comes, it comes angry, breaks things, then makes them clean." He looked at her, really looked at her. They didn't speak after that. They didn't need to. Something fragile and powerful had settled between them, as steady as the rain falling outside. The next morning, when Cole invited her to ride with him to check the weir at Willow Draw, he didn't phrase it as an order. "I'd appreciate another pair of eyes," he said gently. Her heart gave a small, strange flutter. "I'll get my coat." The creek was swollen from the storm, rushing loud and fast. They walked to the edge together. This was the place where everything had begun, though neither knew it then. Cole looked out at the water. She looked at him. Then, gathering her courage, she spoke. "People in town talk. They say things about me being here, about you." Quote. He stiffened, anger flashing in his eyes. "I don't care what they think." "I do," she said softly. "It's all I have. My reputation is the only thing that belongs to me." She looked down, then looked up again, her eyes filled with a fear older than the land around them. "Will you hurt me?" The question broke something inside him. A slow, honest, heartbreaking smile touched his lips. He stepped close, lifted his hand, and cupped her cheek with a touch as gentle as rain. "Only with love," he said. Then he kissed her, not with hunger, but with tenderness. A promise, not a conquest. A beginning, not an ending. And for the first time in her life, Lily Hart felt truly chosen. The kiss at Willow Draw changed something in Cole Harrington and Lily Hart so deeply that neither could return to who they had been before. But the world around them did not pause to let love unfold gently. Trouble was moving fast, carried on whispers, lies, and the hungry ambition of a man who wanted control more than he wanted air. Silas Boone, owner of the Gilded Garter, collector of debts, maker of schemes. He saw Lily's move to the ranch not as a work hire, but as an opportunity, a crack he could force wide open, a way to turn the entire territory against Cole Harrington. The rumor began with one drink. Then it swallowed the whole town. By the time Lily had been at the ranch for 2 weeks, Boone had people believing Cole had taken a fallen woman into his home. The whispers grew teeth. Lily could feel them even 20 miles away, floating through the supply wagon drivers and drifting back in every dusty word. But Cole didn't bend. He didn't retreat. He didn't hide her. Instead, he stood a little closer when they rode out together. He watched her with quiet respect at every meal. He listened to her suggestions about the ranch. What neither of them knew was that their world was about to be struck by fire, literal and otherwise. The first attack wasn't a bullet, it was economic. Boone convinced the cattle buyer to cancel his contract with Cole. Next, he talked the banker into denying Cole's winter feed credit. And finally, he poisoned the sheriff's ear, making sure law would not come quickly if trouble fell on the ranch. Cole took each blow with a silent jaw and cold eyes. Lily watched him. The weight of it pressed on her chest. She had known fear before. Fear of men, of hunger, of losing her dignity. But this was different. This was fear for someone she cared for. Fear for a place that had become home. The next trouble came not from Boone, but from a small rancher named Jed Patterson, twisted with drought, debt, and anger. Boone pushed him into believing that Lily was the ranch's sickness. Patterson arrived with a dozen men on horseback, angry and ready to prove themselves. Lily was teaching the children in the loft of the old carriage house when one of the boys looked out the window and whispered, "Ma'am, riders." Her blood turned cold. She hid the children behind the storage crates, her heart pounding, then stepped outside to face what waited. But Cole and Maeve were already walking toward the mob. The ranch hands came up behind them, outnumbered but unafraid. Patterson shouted accusations. Maeve shot back with a fierce Irish bite. The tension was wildfire tight. Then a gust of wind snapped a loose canvas. Patterson's horse reared violently. His little boy, who had slipped away from home to follow the men, stood right in the path of those pounding hooves. Before Cole could move, Maeve flew forward, grabbed the child, and yanked him out of the way. The horse thundered past as dust swirled around her. Silence swallowed the yard. Patterson stared at his boy in Maeve's arms. And in a single breath, the anger drained from him. Shame flooded his face. His men turned and rode away without a word. That moment should have ended the war. But Boone wasn't done. He demanded control of the valley. And he wanted Lily gone. He wanted power. And he meant to get it with fire. 2 nights later, under a dark sky without moon or stars, someone lit the plains east of the ranch. The fire rose like a monster made of flame. It ran with the wind, devouring everything. The night turned bright orange and roaring. Cole mounted Zeus and led his men into hell. Back at the ranch house, Lily commanded the women and children with a calm she didn't know she had. They drenched the house in water, guarded the stables, brewed endless coffee, made stew, carried buckets, sang to the little ones as the world burned around them. Hours passed like years. Cole fought the fire until his hands blistered, his lungs filled with smoke, and his horse trembled beneath him. The fire surged, the wind shifted, and for one terrifying moment, he thought he would not see morning. But dawn came, and with it, victory. The ranch still stood. The fire had not taken their home. When Cole rode back into the yard, blackened with soot and exhaustion, he saw Lily waiting for him. She was covered in ash, her hair loose, her eyes full of worry and love. He walked straight to her. Everything fell away. He dropped to one knee. He had fought fire, survived mobs, and outlasted drought. But asking her this felt like the bravest act of all. "Lily Hart," he said, his voice raw, "I almost died last night. And all I could think about was you. I don't have a ring. I don't have fancy words. I just have the truth. Marry me. Build a world with me on top of these ashes." Her tears fell freely. She didn't hide them. "Yes," she whispered. "Oh, Cole, yes." They married an hour later under the bougainvillea trellis, still dripping water from the bucket line. Maeve stood beside Lily. The men gathered proudly, and an old ranch hand read from a worn Bible. Cole slid a smooth stone, a piece of desert agate, into Lily's palm. "With this," he said, "I choose you, today and every day." She closed her hand around the stone. "And I choose you," she said. Their kiss sealed more than a marriage. It sealed the valley's future. But Silas Boone wasn't finished. He gathered a mob, 30 men armed and angry, and rode toward the ranch 3 nights later. This time the Harrington ranch was ready, but they were not alone. Families, small ranchers, miners, widows, immigrants, people Cole and Lily had quietly helped for years, walked onto the ranch yard carrying lanterns and tools, forming a wall of human protection. A community standing for truth, not a fortress, a family. Boone's men faltered at the sight. Then Maeve stepped forward with Boone's own ledger in her hand, the proof of his bribes, extortion, and crimes. "This," she said, her voice like iron, "is the real poison in this valley." The mob unraveled. Boone snapped, drew his pistol. Maeve shot first, a clean shot, a disarm, not a kill. Sheriff Miller arrived just in time to see the truth laid bare. Silas Boone was arrested on the spot. His reign ended. What rose after was something new. The drought ended with late summer rain. The valley healed. Lily's school grew. Cole's ranch thrived. Maeve was later elected as a county commissioner. The town changed its name from Dusty Bend to Willow Bend, in honor of the water that tied them all together. 5 years later, Cole told the story of Willow Draw to their little daughter, Hannah, as she played under the oak trees planted for each year of their marriage. And every one of those years held the same truth. Cole chose Lily, Lily chose Cole, and the valley chose them both, forever.